Hello, my name is Vishal Kumaja, studying in Sri Venkateshwara College of Engineering. Today's topic is addition of complex numbers using classes and objects. Introduction. As the topic indicates, we will see what is a complex number, some basics of classes and objects, and lastly we're gonna dive into the coding part. So let's begin. What is complex numbers? The numbers which are in the form of a plus ib, where a is a real part and ib is the imaginary part. For example, consider 2 plus 5i, where 2 is a real part and 5i is an imaginary part. In complex numbers, we can perform addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. What are classes and objects? Classes. Class is a blueprint which defines some properties and behaviors. Syntax of class. Class followed by class name and a semicolon, where class is a keyword and the class name can be anything according to the user. For example, here the class keyword is common, but the changing word is the class name. So you can define any class name for the class. Objects. An object is an instance of a class which has those properties and behaviors attached. For example, consider a class named dog, which has the functions like barking, walking, running, etc. So the walking, barking, eating can be the methods defined under the class. Syntax of object. Variable name equals to class name followed with open and a closed parenthesis. The following are the examples. Now let us begin with the coding part. In the first line you can see a class created with a class name complex addition. Under it we have three different methods. The first one is the init method. The second is add to complex. Then we have an add n complex, in which the first one is init, which is inbuilt in Python, which is used for initializing the values. It has the 5 different parameters. The first one is self, which we'll be discussing later on. The second is real, which will be holding a real part of 2 different complexes, similarly with an imaginary. Then we have list of real. For addition of n complex numbers, we'll be passing list of real numbers first, then we'll be passing list of imaginary. Then we have declared the real imaginary list in a variable as self.real, which is acting as a variable name. Similarly with imaginary, list real and list imaginary. Then we have the second method, add to complex, which has one parameter self. Next, under it we have a first print function which is printing the first complex number. Next we have the second print method which is printing the second complex number. Then we will be printing the addition of 2 complex numbers by using sum method, which will be giving the sum of that list of 2 real part. Similarly the sum of imaginary part. Then this will be printed. In the third method we have an add n complex, which has similarly one parameter self. Under it we have an variable name a, which is holding the length of real list. Then we have a for loop, which will be running from 0 to a, which will be holding some value. Then we have a print method which will be printing one by one the complex numbers. Then we will be printing the sum of the list of real numbers. Then we will be printing plus between the imaginary part and the real part. Then imaginary part similarly will be printing the sum of imaginary part. Next we have an variable a, which will be acting as an object or the constructor. Here complex addition is the class name, and here we will be passing the real part, which will be stored in this real, and these values are randomly taken. The second will be The imaginary part will be stored in this imaginary, then the list of real part and the list of imaginary part. In the next line we have a dot add to complex, in which we will be calling a from a, that is the complex addition, the class. Under it we have a method a add to complex. We'll be calling add to complex with respect to complex addition, that is class, and we are passing the parameter a that is complex addition, which are holding different values. Similarly with a dot add n complex, here a will be a which is a complex addition, the class name which is holding different values will be acting as a self indicator, and the init method is automatically called when then constructor is created. Now let us run the code and see the output. As you can see, the entered first complex will be 3 plus 3i, then we have the 7 plus 3i what we have entered. The addition of this 3 and 7 will be 10 plus this 3 and 5, we have 8. Then we for n addition of complex numbers we have given the values, the real part and the imaginary part, and it has been printed. Then the sum is printed. Do like, share, subscribe, and also share your views in the comment section. Thank you. Have a nice day.